the hearing, continuation, and then deliberation on agency budget. So what we will do is ask for the Department of Corrections System Secretary Jeff Zuma, Kansas Department of Correction, if you'd come forward, Jeff. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and present on the budget recommendations for FY25. My name is Jeff Smuda. I'm the Secretary for Kansas Department of Corrections. Are we able to pull up that PowerPoint? I'm going to move very quickly through this because I know we have another presentation behind me and you're going to do deliberation. So I'll move through it very quickly, but if you have questions along the way, we can certainly talk about it. Oh, I think that's the wrong one. Do you have a handout for the presentation, Mr. Chairman? Because I'll get started. So slide number 2 has the governor's recommendations for FY 2025, and that is a breakdown of the KDOC budget with those recommendations. Let's see where we're at here. This slide breaks it down, the pie chart with facility operations, healthcare, and food service. That's 68% of the agency operating budget. Our population is increasing. Our adult population hit an all-time high in April 2019 of just under 10,100. We saw it declining in 2020 to 2022 due to the impact of COVID, but from FY 2022 through 23, we've seen an increase of nearly 16%, so it's back on the rise. It's been flat a little bit this year, but the projections are we're going to continue to see an increase in our adult population. So this slide reflects those projections from the Kansas Sentencing Commission for FY 24 through FY 33. We're expected to exceed our bed capacity within the next 10 years. And just, if you look at that slide on the far left, the blue is the actual population. It's graphing that. The orange is that is ascending. That is the projected population. And that gray flat line is when our bed capacity intersects with that projected growth. Today, we have a physical capacity of 10,549 beds. We're not able to fully staff all those beds, although our staffing is improving. We're not all the way there, so we've taken 582 beds offline, and we have a staffed bed capacity of 9,877. So part of the governor's recommendations is to fully fund our support contract services. This slide depicts the food service contract. They provide over 800,000 meals each month, do a lot of great work for us. There's some cost escalators built into the contract, plus it's based on the average daily population. The escalator's a 2% increase, and then also in the budget, in the governor's budget recommendations, we've got about $272,000 to address equipment needs. We have a lot of aged food service equipment that's in disrepair. On the health services side, Centurion of Kansas LLC is our contract provider. We began the contract in 2020. That they provide for comprehensive both medical and mental health services. They have the full risk contract. A lot of employees were their great partner for us. One thing of note is our hepatitis C drugs are now purchased through the federal 340B program, and that's at a substantial cost savings, so we're appreciative of that. So for the healthcare contract, governor has a recommendation of $90,992,000 and a little bit more. The cost per day for that contract is about $9,200, and the cost per resident per day is about just a little over $25 a day. Take just a moment and focus on the impact of the recent pay plans. If you look at this this graph on the far left, where that arrow is, that's when the 24/7 pay plan was announced in November of 2021. It actually hit paychecks the first week in January 2022. We peaked in that first part of January 2022. You'll see that just to the right of that arrow that's on the far left. Then you can see things stabilize. That 24/7 pay plan, those differentials really stabilized our staffing. Then this past, towards the end of last year's legislative session, you legislators approved and announced pay increases for state employees to include our staff, and you can see that arrow on the right indicates when those pay increases were approved, and you can see from that point on, we've had a dramatic improvement in the number of vacancies that we have in our uniformed staff. So that investment in our workforce has definitely helped first stabilize and now really improve our staffing, and we're very appreciative of it. Some numbers on vacancies within the organization. Again, it's continuing to improve. You can see some numbers on there. We have an average uniform vacancy rate in adult facilities of a little over 11%. Only one facility that's above 25% today, and we're really looking much better. Governor has some recommendations for employee compensation. Statewide, a 5% base pay increase. Increase the minimum wage for Kansas state employees, state employees only, not a minimum wage for all of Kansas. That $15 an hour, and if that were approved, would impact about 45 of our staff. That would include storekeepers, clerical staff, custodians. Governor's also recommending that we make permanent the 24/7 differentials. The first three differentials would be added to the base pay. We only have one employee that differential 3 would apply to. That's for medical staff. We only have one employee that would apply to. But differentials 1 and 2 would apply to our staff, be built into the base pay. Then retain differential 4. Department of Administration would revise the qualifiers, how that would be applied. And then the governor is recommending a 7.5% pay increase for salaried staff at correctional facilities. The 24/7 pay plan, salaried staff at facilities aren't eligible for those, and so it's created some equity and compression issues. And that 7.5% is looking to address that. Budget recommendations also include a premium pay for officers that are assigned to our special operations team, our tactical teams, if you will. $1 an hour for those serving on those tactical teams. Those that are serving in the restrictive housing units, those are the jail within the prison. That's where folks go when they're disruptive, they're violent, what have you. So staff working in there would receive an additional $1 per hour. And then staff that can demonstrate a proficiency in bilingual skills to help us interpret for our non-English speaking population, they would also receive that premium pay. Additionally, the governor's recommending funding to help us move to a higher quality uniform and assist us in purchasing additional support items that go on the uniform that today we don't provide. Budget proposal includes revising and increasing our resident incentive pay. We use a number of our residents, about nearly 3,000 of them, work on our grounds maintenance, building maintenance, food service, what have you, helping us maintain our facilities. If we did not have those residents doing the work, we'd have to contract that or hire more staff. The pay rates today and for the last at least 40 years, I can't find anybody in the organization that has seen these pay rates increase And the longest serving person I could find was been with us 40 years. So at least in 40 years, they haven't moved from their current status. We have that 45 cents to $1.05. That's not an hour, that's a day. So the proposal is to move those out from $1.28 to $2.98 per day. Not only does it give them some purchasing power on the canteen, allows them to pay their fines, fees, restitution, child support, what have you. I think I've appeared before you and talked about the Lansing Career Campus before. We want to create the right space to increase our capacity to provide educational and workforce training opportunities. We think that's where a big bang for the buck is in our investment in our population, get them educated, get them the skills that they can hold a job when they get out. So again, the governor's budget recommendation is funding $20 million for the career campus. It's a $40 million project. If you'll recall, I think it was in 21, Legislature passed a bill that allowed us to fund, develop public-private partnership. We formed a 501c3. We had authorization to do that, to where we can solicit foundations, private entities, whatnot, to help contribute to the career campus and other things. We contracted with a vendor who does fundraising campaigns, really understands that donor world. They believe that there is funding out there to match, but what the potential donors are telling us, they want to see the state have the equal amount of funding for that. Career campus important, at least in part for this. 95% of our current residents will return to the community. I think most folks don't really realize that. 33% serve less than 1 year. 47% serve less than 2 years, and 66% serve less than 5 years. So high percentage, 2/3 of the population, we have them for 5 years or less. And what we know is if they get an education, workforce training, and we can get them to working, provide them the skills that when they get out, they can obtain a job that pays a sustainable living wage, they're 1/3 less likely to come back to prison. That's good public safety. They can support themselves, they can support their families, they can meet their needs. Governor's also recommending increasing the budget. We do grant funding for community corrections agencies, and I know Mr. Regier is going to present after me. They supervise probationers out in the community, defer people from coming to prison. Their costs continue to increase like everybody else. Their staffing's not enough to really meet the needs. So we have governor's recommending $1.5 million for additional supervision officers to address high caseloads, and another $1 million for additional services, whether that be drug testing, treatment, just operational costs. Some capital improvements. Construct a new medical, behavioral health, and support services building at our women's facility in Topeka. That's about $40 million. That project would provide centralized visitation and staff entrance. Today, staff come in entrances on different ends of the facility. The visiting is not adequate. The current healthcare and behavioral health space is insufficient to meet the needs of our population. When that space was built, we had about 450 women at the facility. Our capacity today is up to 936, and it's just woefully inadequate to meet the needs. Some photos of the clinic, images of the clinic at the Topeka Correctional Facility. Really, it's overcrowded, inadequate. Another capital improvement is to replace the Hutchinson Correctional Facility in Hutchinson, Kansas. That's about $378 million. The original facility was constructed, the original part of the facility was constructed in 1867. There's no the central unit, which is the main part of the facility, has no air conditioning. That's not good for both the residents or our staff that are working in there. It's a difficult, challenging environment. Some of the cells are not up to the standards as established by the American Correctional Association. Minimum standards for from ACA for cell size, 70 square feet. We have cells that are about 42 square feet. We have a couple little bit lower custody units there that are wood construction, lack sprinkler systems. We're not ADA compliant. We're grandfathered in because many of those requirements came in after the facility was built, but nonetheless, we need to bring those up. We had a vendor come in and do a facilities-wide assessment of our adult facilities, determine what our maintenance needs, repair needs were, replacement costs, and that vendor, when they got to Hutchinson, gave a recommendation for what repairs and renovations would need to be, but suggested that it's not cost-effective and that really we should replace the facility. So that's where that request is generated. The new facility would be constructed on land that we currently own there, right adjacent to the current facility. We would increase the population there by about 250 beds. That's going to help meet those projections of growth in the years ahead. Some images of some of the maintenance and repair issues at the Hutchinson facility. Examples. Athena is our new data system project in partnership. We contracted with Microsoft. We have two legacy systems that are very old. One of them, I believe, is a DOS system from 1978. So we're looking to upgrade those. Appreciate the support we've had for that. But we financed that project, and that project's going to come, we're going to go fully live with it, we believe, late this spring or early summer. We financed that. You can see the debt service payments. And the governor is recommending that we just settle that debt when the project is complete so we don't have payments in the out years, and that's about $6.7 million to retire that early. Doing a lot to try to improve the environment, keep families connected. We know that's important, so since 2018, we've had a partnership with the Children's Discovery Center here in Topeka with our women's facility to have mothers be able to spend a day with their children. Stay bonded. We know that incarceration has a real adverse effect on the children of those that are incarcerated, and it's important to keep them connected for when folks return back to the community, and it helps those kids maybe stay out of the justice system. So we have a partnership there. It's grown to six events a year. We're looking to expand that to our male facilities. The Discovery Center has an ability to take their activities out on the road. And so there's about $224,000 in the governor's recommendation to expand that to our male facilities. And with that, Mr. Chairman, again, I appreciate the opportunity to present. I stand for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Senator Bellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here today, Secretary. On the hepatitis, where are we at? I really appreciated seeing that we're able to get these vaccines from the federal government and save considerable money. I mean, are we getting them for half cost, or what kind of savings are we seeing on the?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm looking at Keith's notes here. It looks like the average cost is about $12,500. I think that's going to come down even more. We have he says approximately 30% reduction in cost to acquire the Hep C drug. So the cost was $12,000. That's 30% less than that. Sounds like we're under 10. And I really appreciate the investment. If you remember, and I know you do, back 5-6 years ago, we had a backlog of nearly 1,000 people that needed it. And I think today we treated 216 in FY24 and 236 in FY25. We're seeing the infection rate on people coming into our reception and diagnostic unit dropping. So it must be having an impact out there in the community as well.
That's great. That's why I was wondering how our numbers look. So,
yep.
Yeah, that's way better than we've seen in the past.
It's much improved, much improved.
Great, thank you.
You got a question? Senator Pitt.
Thank you so much, Secretary Zimino. On that Athena 2 system, what kind of is it like a tracking system for for our officers, or is it more for those incarcerated? I'm wondering just a little bit about that. If you could briefly describe that, and also, are we we confident in our security posture on that system? Is this going to help us with that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Senator, thanks for the question. It's an offender management system, and it's everything from their disciplinary history to their classification. We've got their banking in there that they do. We use it. We have partners like in community corrections that use it. Phase 1 rolled out a couple, maybe 2.5 years ago. Phase 2 brings the rest of it out. And it's a pretty holistic system. And yes, the security concerns, which we're well aware of, Microsoft has those built into the system to thwart those cyber attacks.
Senator Bellinger?
Thank you. One more question. I'm really glad to see we're changing the pay for the prisoners. You know, you and I have visited about this for 5 years, so finally. But it still looks like it's still going to be a challenge because the last phone call I had from an inmate, the coffee can was $9. That's nine days of work. I mean, you know, so anyway, it's a start, and I appreciate seeing that. I guess my question along with that would be, you know, in some of our facilities, we're able to offer other type of employment. So some of these folks, for instance, where they're making the tractor seats, what do they get paid an hour? It's the regular wage, correct?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Senator, yeah, you're correct. So in our private industry program that you're referencing, if they're working in that private industry program, they're paid a prevailing wage like they would be out in the community. That's the Department of Labor reviews that to make sure that that's adequate. They pay taxes just like someone out in the community would. They have a mandatory forced savings account, so when they release, they have money. And again, pay their fines, fees, restitution. But it's a prevailing wage. So if someone out in the community is making $10 an hour at a job, that's what they would make at a similar.
Great. I just wanted to, some people may not be aware of that, and I wanted you to just give a little highlight on that. And do you know a percentage? I mean, do we have 20%, 50% of the inmates that we have enough of these private sector opportunities for? You know about how many we have doing that?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, between our traditional correctional industries program, which is a welding shop, and we have a paint plant for like the highway paint and whatnot, between that and the private industry program with our 40 private industry partners, we'll have, it bumps up and down a little bit, but it's usually somewhere between 1,150 and 1,300 residents. So it's about, I think it's about 15%, it might be 13, 15% of our overall population, and we're looking to expand that. Today, there's Correctional Industries is building a 25,000-foot industries building for private partnership inside the fences at our Lansing facility. That'll be done here in the spring, and we've got 3 others on the docket to place one at our Winfield facility, one at our Topeka facility for our women, and then one at our El Dorado facility. So we want to expand that program. And I think it's a great partnership. Our guys need the work. It's good, productive. It helps the citizens for all the reasons I said earlier. And then our private industry partners in this environment struggle to find that workforce. So it's really a great partnership. So we're looking to expand it.
Final question. Do we use any opportunities with the state highway? Do we have any that work on that side of things?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, we do have some crews that work out in municipalities. Some of them do a little bit of highway work. They'll work at state parks or the lakes, helping do cleanup, whatnot. Some local communities that are near our facilities, we use them to help do work like on their streets and lemon trees or whatnot, that type thing. So we have a few of those. We do. We have one here in Topeka as well.
Thank you. I just think that people need to hear it because you're doing a lot of good things there. It's just we need to get it to where every one of the inmates has the opportunity to better themselves and have a better life ahead of them. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
I'd like to get a question here somewhere. Senator Pittman.
Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, I missed that one part of the presentation where you were talking about the impact of recent pay plans. I noticed that's on, I don't know what page it is, but it's in the middle of it, and it has a nice graphic about the historical vacancy rates, and it's going down. I take it the vacancy rate's not going down because we're eliminating positions, but rather we're hiring people, right?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Senator, that's exactly right. We are not eliminating positions. That vacancy rate's going down at least in good measure, I think, because of the investment in the workforce, the pay plans.
Yeah, I think this 24/7 differential and making that more permanent is going to be a good thing. The increase is good. I mean, having a 25% vacancy rate at that one facility is, it's unsafe for our officers, so hopefully this will help that. Thank you.
Any other questions, committee? Okay. I think you've got something else in front of you that's called a performance measures. Have you guys ever seen these before? You have? Okay. Senator Pittman, have you seen these before? Yeah. Yeah. I'm not saying that we use this now, but I'm learning something new all the time, and I'm thinking this is a nice thing for a subcommittee ahead of time. This really tells a good story in here. So just a comment I want to make to you guys.
Yeah, I've seen these performance-based metrics before. We've asked the agencies to come in and do that a number of years. Sometimes we have challenges on whether those are the right metrics and that type of thing, but, you know.
But I think you can get them online, but for us to have them in paper at our committee is a good thing to review. So I'm just saying for down the road. So the questions I have is on page 1, you got an SGF reappropriation of $56.9 million. And I think that's been reappropriated, you know, a couple of times. I was wondering why we keep reappropriating that. And I know the biggest thing is the evidence-based juvenile program of $53.7 million. So I just wondered what what we're trying to do there.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I think we push out so management of that evidence-based programs fund, which is probably the bulk of that. There's oversight from the Juvenile Justice Oversight Committee. That's made up of a myriad of folks. I'm a member of that. They make the recommendations. I think the statute says the secretary will direct payment of it, but it's really managed by that group. So that money goes out or it's available and it doesn't often get expended I'm not sure all the reasons. It goes out, it's available, people are able to apply for it. Sometimes it's granted to them and it just doesn't get spent. So what the Juvenile Justice Oversight Committee is doing more communication to different entities, smaller entities like nonprofits, that kind of smaller groups, to say, look, do you have a need that meets with the criteria? We're trying to get that money out there to be a more preventative measure and divert kids from coming too deep into the system.
You know how long we've been reappropriating this?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm not sure. We can get you that and follow up with that.
I would be questioning that as we go forward. You know, if it's sitting here just going over and over, just a thought. So
I would tell you, Mr. Chairman, that there's a glide path that Juvenile Justice Committee, with the programs that are now in place, that there's a target out there, and I'm not sure, I want to say it's 7 or 8 years down the road, where the money going out will match up with the money coming in, and the fund will no longer anticipated to have that balance.
it'd be interesting to see where that's at.
Okay, we'll get that for you.
Okay. Next question would be on the Hutch Correctional Facility. Have we had a study done on that by a third party for location and need and size? And that would be interesting to see that. So,
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, we have not done a study or a siting. We haven't done any preliminary designs or anything. The first thing was to see if there was a will to provide the funding. If we did, we would contract to get a firm in to help us site it. We have lots of land down there in Hutchinson, and our intent would be to keep it in the community. We have great support in Hutchinson.
okay. Next question would be the career campus match. So we do have career campuses now, don't we?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, we have a small satellite career campus at Lansing down by our minimum unit that was donated by some generous folks. We do not have the career campus model at our other facilities. We have education departments, but the size, the ability, and our capacity, there's not enough room and not enough of the right space.
Okay. So the Lansing one, was there any kind of matching on that, or did they pay for that themselves?
On that satellite one that's down by the minimum custody, that was a donation from a private party.
Next question on page 9 talks about the Children Discovery Center, the $224,000. I notice in your program here, it talks about sustained current program, but the one you have is at the Topeka's facility. I think I've seen that one outside. So, and this picture shows it being inside. So I'm just kind of questioning, and this says 3 facilities in the men's side. So how long ago did we do it in Topeka, and has it been used? I know the day I was there, it wasn't being used. So it'd be interesting how often people go out and use that. It's kind of a new thing. Everybody gets into it. Where's it been? I don't know how long Topeka's been out there, and is it being used today? So that was my question.
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the Kansas Children's Discovery Center that's located here in Topeka, they have a facility here in town that's open to the general public. They close that 6 times a year. It's on a Monday. It's not open to the general public. And our women that are eligible, they have to be disciplinary free. They are able. Their children are able to come and spend the day with them. They have outdoor facilities and they have indoor facilities, and these images are from the indoor. So our women spend the day with their kids. The intent is they also have the ability to take a good portion of the activities and things that they do here in Topeka, take them on a semi, set it up in a community like Hutchinson, or what have you, and for a day, make it available to some of our male population to meet with their kids, and then do the same, open it up for the community, is my understanding.
Okay. How often have we had any incidents with those? The one in Topeka here, the one that's outside that you're aware of?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, not that I'm aware of. I don't believe we have.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm looking for Randy's name. What's Randy's last name? It's going to be on front. Okay, next we have up Randy Regier with the Community Corrections, Kansas Community Corrections Association. Can you welcome to committee, and we're interested to hear your program. Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning, Chairman and committee members. My name is Randy Regier. I'm the Director of Reno County Community Corrections and the President of the Kansas Community Corrections Association. I'll keep my comments brief to be respectful of your time. I know this chart's familiar to, we'll see if we can get this working real quick. It's on slide 2. I know this chart's familiar to all of you, but I just briefly want to remind you that there are 3 separate and distinct agencies doing supervision duties in Kansas. It's also important to understand that while court services and parole staff are state employees, community corrections staff are not, or county employees. This distinction between state and county employees becomes particularly important when state employees are given raises, but funding isn't increased for community corrections grants. This results in community corrections agencies having a harder time keeping our trained, experienced staff as our pay scales fall behind. As you may remember, in FY22, our association was advocating for additional funding to bring pay scales up to a competitive level because our funding for that had been flat or reduced for 9 years. When Governor Kelly's budget came out, it included raises for state employees and additional funding for community corrections to bring pay scales up to a competitive level. For the last quarter of FY22, community corrections grants were increased by $2.6 million, and for FY23, where grants were increased by $9.2 million. The governor's budget was specific that this funding was to be used to bring pay scales up to a competitive level. Community corrections agencies were restricted to that purpose and were not allowed to use this money to hire new staff. For FY24, this restriction was removed. However, since agencies had already adjusted their pay scale, there wasn't money left over for adding staff. I'll quickly go over our request as Secretary Zamuda had laid that out. Again, we worked with Secretary Zamuda closely to provide an enhanced budget request we thought was reasonable and responsible and would enhance public safety. The request for $5 million includes two pieces: the $1.5 million to add intensive supervision officers across the state, and second, the $3.5 million for interventions. Those interventions include things like substance abuse, mental health, and behavior change interventions and services, as well as assistance to people on supervision. Currently, there are about 155 community corrections officers across the state. Based on the recommended caseload sizes, we need an additional 51 officers. However, rather than trying to do that all in 1 year, we're asking to do this in a phased approach. It's very important we have these. To do the work, we need time with our offenders, and when caseloads are too high, we just don't have the time that's needed. Again, this $1.5 million is to target to add supervision officers across the state. However, I will point out it's important with state employees getting a 5% wage increase, that additional funding is needed for that as well. This graph is, I'll just go over this briefly. This is the actual cost for a mid-sized agency from 2013 to 2023. These are the increases. The cost of intensive supervision continues to go up. However, our grant funding for operations has remained flat for 11 years. Doing more with less has become just doing less. For agencies to provide the interventions needed to support probationers and keep the community safe, we need the additional $3.5 million. Governor Kelly's budget has included an increase of $2.5 million for community corrections for grants for next year. While we're very thankful for that support, I don't think it meets the needs in your community. When you take that $1 million for client interventions and divide that out in between 31 judicial districts and nearly 8,000 probationers, it doesn't go very far. This chart shows the estimated amounts for interventions for community corrections agencies would receive in your jurisdictions. It also shows how much that would be for each probationer throughout the year. You can see in Northwest Kansas, it's about $187 for the entire year. In El Dorado, in the 13th Judicial District, it's only about $110 per probationer. I believe after 11 years of flat funding, the $3.5 million is quite conservative, especially in light of our rising costs and the cost of incarceration. I'm going to just kind of jump over the next two slides. You have that information to look at down the road if you have time. Kind of just lays out that we are a cost avoidance tool for the state, in that we divert a lot of people from the expensive cost of incarceration. So I would just ask you, please support our full budget enhancement request of $5 million for community corrections grants. I thank you for your time. You can see here you have information to contact myself or Stuart Little. And there's also a QR code there that takes you to the Kansas Department of Corrections website, and it's a map that links you, can give you the information for any of the jurisdictions in your community if you want to reach out to them as well. But I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Randy. Senator Pittman.
Thank you. Big believer in this. Is this budget approved by the governor?
The 2.5 is the requested amount. The 5 million is the amount that we worked with Secretary Zamuda to have for an enhancement.
So 5 million on top of that 2.5?
No, that would be included. It's we're asking for 5 million. The governor's included 2.5.
I'm a big believer in this. I think it's great. I do hear some challenges with some of the practitioners out there. There's something called the concurrent system that might be causing some challenges out there. Can you tell me what that's about?
Are you talking about concurrent supervision? Yeah, some things passed a year or two ago now, and that's just now taking place, where if an individual's on state parole, court services, and community corrections are two of those programs, we're all working together at this point to make sure that that individual's only seeing one person, one supervision officer, instead of having to deal with 2 or 3. So we're really trying to be much more efficient. This is something that we've done for years in the past, but it actually came into statute just a year ago, I believe.
is organization, are the organizational things absolutely aligned, or are there some hiccups going on?
I would say that in our jurisdictions, we haven't had any problems. I don't know how that's looking statewide. I would say that really just took effect as of January 1, and it's something we really need to get in place over the next couple months. So I think we'll start to see those things happen over the next couple months, but I really think that these are things that we should be able to work out without any problem.
One last question. I also hear challenges for the folks that are who are in the program, having challenges with, say, transportation costs, finding housing and these types of things, the basics of life. Do you guys help them at all figure that out? None of this money goes towards that, right?
This money does go towards that, and that's, again, where I would point out to the amount that we're looking at per probationer per year. If you're only looking at $110 per year for a probationer that this increase covers, it's not unusual at all in Reno County for us to pay $250 to get somebody a deposit and 1 week of rent in a sober living house. So you can see that $110 doesn't go very far if you're looking at that. So there's a lot of things. We're paying for mental health services. We're paying for substance abuse services. We're paying for transportation to some of those appointments. We're paying for housing. A lot of agencies are paying for services to help them, like with clothing for work. So there's a lot of different programs that are out there to support for people that are coming out of these dollars.
And is that, instead of, sorry, Mr. Chair, this is my last question, promise. Is that helping us avoid other costs, such as being incarcerated? I mean, if we take the cost of an incarcerated individual, does this cost look a lot less than the incarceration cost?
Yeah, absolutely. Secretary Zamuda said a few years ago that it costs a little over $100 per a day to house someone in a facility. Community corrections is less than $10 per day to supervise someone in the community. So it's a significant cost savings. That's why I say we're really a cost avoidance tool for the state. When you invest in community corrections, you're really helping save down the road.
Any other questions? Senator Billinger.
Thank you. Did the governor give you a reason why she didn't go for the full request?
Not that I'm aware of, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Randy, I want to thank you. I spent some time with you and some of the people, and you do serve very well, and I thank you for your service in that area.
Thank you, and thank you for the time, committee.
Okay, we want to deliberate? Okay.
We're debating, we're deliberating. I just muted it just so I could say something. Muted now.
Okay, Senator Billinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I make a motion that we accept the governor's recs with following exceptions. Want to look at funding sources. For instance, we're okay with the new prison, but we want to look at possibly bonding or other opportunities. We're okay with the career campus at Lansing. Want to look at if there's maybe some other funding options there as far as, I know there's some private money that may be available. And the capital improvements in Topeka, we'll look at the options of funding on that. And the Athena debt retirement, want to look at that before we decide which way to go on that. Also, we would like to discuss before our full committee the options of looking at maybe trying to increase the community correction Shirley, do you need anything? Did I get that explained well enough for you, or? Right, we'll discuss it with the full committee and see what we might want to do. Right. And we're going with the GovRec anyway. We're just, except for these funding options. That are at for sure by Mega. Right, but so we'd probably look at these by Mega, yeah. Right.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Shirley, do we have what we need to understand what our motion is? That's my question.
If you would like, sir, I will restate it.
Thank you.
The subcommittee concurs with the governor's recommendation in 24. The subcommittee concurs with the governor's recommendation in 25 with the following notations. The full committee will review the Hutchinson Correctional funding, the Career Campus funding, the Topeka Health Center capital improvement funding, and the Athena debt service funding when working out the bill out of full committee. And in addition to that, the full committee will discuss possibly adding money to the community corrections.
That's correct. The career campus is at Lansing. Yes. Okay.
Okay, we have the motion. Got a second? Any discussion?
Yeah, and just to be clear, thank you, Mr. Chair. When we're talking about financing options, specifically bonding versus SGF, right? That's the kind of notion there.
That, yes. And any other options. There could be some maybe ARPA money left. I don't know what we might find, but yeah, all the options might be available for funding.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Motion carries, and that concludes this subcommittee. Thank you.
That's it.